Well, folks, the 2026 Texas Senate election is heating up, and Republicans are facing a brutal fight between incumbent Senator John Cornyn and incumbent Attorney General Ken Paxton in the Republican primary. Now, the big question in this election, is this a sign of massive trouble for Texas Republicans, or is this just the growing pains in a state that has been controlled by the Republican Party since the mid-1990s? But today, we are going to be breaking everything down and why I am very confident that Democrats, no matter who Republicans nominate, will not win this seat. But the biggest piece of news that we have coming out this week is that the Cook Political Report has moved the Texas Senate race from a safe Republican seat to a likely Republican seat amid this really divisive Republican primary between Senator Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton. And I think the big thing that people need to realize is that this shift reflects concerns about the GOP primary and how intense it is right now, not that there is some sort of sudden Democratic surge. Like, yes, I know all the Texas Democrats are, I'm sure, overjoyed right now that Jasmine Crockett was leading in the most recent poll by 15 points. She was getting 35% of the Democrat primary support in the most recent primary poll, and she's not even running. So let's be honest, this has nothing to do with Democrats surging in the state. This has everything to do with the GOP primary. And let's face a reality. Texas has not elected a Democrat senator from Texas since like 1994. No. It's like 1988. That's the last time they elected a senator. The last time they elected a Democrat statewide was 1994. And we know that the state was one of the states that swung even harder to President Donald Trump in the most recent election. We saw from 2020, he wins the state by 5 points. He almost quadruples his margin of victory, and he wins the state by almost 14 percentage points in 2024. Now we know there's a big thing has to do with a lot of these districts down here. These districts that are majority, and I mean like overwhelmingly like 80-90% Hispanic districts that at one point voted for Hillary Clinton. Look, or Barack Obama, voted 50-45, 54-39, 73 in Star, Texas. It voted for Barack Obama. Barack Obama got 86% support in Star, Texas. Fast forward, Trump wins it by 16 points. 16 points. So Republicans have made a lot of inroads in this state. And the rating change from the Cook Political Report really highlights that there's this Paxton-Cornyn clash, with polls showing that Paxton is leading Cornyn in every single GOP primary poll that has been taken. However, a lot of the likely Republican states still mean that the GOP is heavily favored. Democrats would need a miracle if they wanted to flip this race. Now, yes, would they be closer to flipping it if Paxton was the nominee? Sure. Could you make that? The reality is they're going to face a brutal election in 2026, not only in Texas, but across the country. The Cook Political Report even goes that far to note that they face a brutal Senate map in 26, needing to gain 4 net seats, with Texas being an extremely long shot. There's many places they're going to focus on to flip. Specifically, North Carolina, Maine, Iowa, Ohio are probably going to be places they focus on, not Texas. And if they do, I think it's a little far out there. Yes, can you make the argument? Go back to 2018. We all saw what happened. Ted Cruz barely wins re-election by 2.5 points. Look, I think there's a lot of factors that went into that just aren't present now. Look, Ted Cruz did not endorse Trump in 2016. A lot of Republicans did not like that. The reality is that this was a midterm election, which that's true for Democrats now that it's a midterm election for Donald Trump, but Democrats are pulling very far behind on the generic ballot from where they were at this point in 2017. You know, Democrats are averaging roughly 3% in a generic congressional ballot. Relative, they were at like 8 or 9% in July of 2017. So that's a pretty big difference that you have to look at. But the bottom line is this rating shift signals there is a lot of primary chaos going on right now, not a Democratic opening. Republicans remain in the driver's seat in the state of Texas. Now, the GOP primary has been a slugfest. John Cornyn, he's a 4-term incumbent senator. Ken Paxton, he's the firebrand Texas Attorney General. And like we said, Ken Paxton has led in every single poll that has been taken since July of 2022. Since July of 2022. Even with a Senate Leadership Fund survey showing that he is beating John Cornyn 44-34. That's a reality right here. This poll right here, 34-44. And I believe that Paxton, his appeal really lies with the Trump movement, with those voters who see Cornyn as too establishment for support in things like bipartisan gun safety laws and maybe Ukraine aid. And Cornyn, who's a former Senate whip, touts his work with the Trump administration during his first term. And yes, we have to give Cornyn some credit. He voted with Donald Trump in his first term like 96 or 95% of the time. So you really can't take that away from John Cornyn. He votes with Donald Trump 96% of the time. And yes, does it not make me feel very comfortable where he does break with the party? Absolutely. But still, he's not this ideal senator that I would elect. But still, he's a strong conservative Republican at the end of the day. And Ken Paxton has a lot of baggage, a lot of scandals from his impeachment battles, his ethic controversies, which will hurt him in the 2026 Senate election, especially if Democrats decide to nominate someone a little more moderate. They probably won't. They'll probably nominate someone like in Colin Allred. As of right now, Allred and basically, I was going to say Beto. He's not in it yet. Beto would probably be more left than Allred. Allred's still on the left side. But Beto would be even further left than Colin Allred would be. But I think he would perform. It's like, look, at the end of the day, I think he's still going to win. I still do. That's the reality of what we're looking at here. And, looking at the actual polling, here, you can see John Cornyn is going to beat Colin Allred by 4 points. Ken Paxton's going to beat him by 2. Brad Parcells' internal poll from April shows that Allred is up like 15 points on Paxton. I don't see that happening. I just don't. But still, I think Ken Paxton and some of the bags that he has will hurt Republicans in the state of Texas. And we know that infighting right now risks draining the GOP's resources. Resources are a finite thing. They are. The only thing that has going for them right now is that really Texas is a deep red lean. It voted for Trump by 14 points in 2024, and it keeps this state pretty safe. Now, the primaries chaos might rally a lot of Democrats, but history shows Texas Republicans unite after brutal primaries. Look at Ted Cruz's 2018 win. It's like, although was it pretty nasty? Oh hell yeah, it was pretty nasty, but still. He still won at the end of the day. They still came together. He still won. He did. He was able to win in this election against Beto O'Rourke when it was a really bad year for the Republican Party. He still won by 2.5 points. But that brings me to my next point my third point on why I do not believe that Democrats will win in 2026. I just don't think so. Because Democrats are hyping candidates like Colin Allred, who, yes, I'll give him credit. He did outperform Kamala Harris in 2024, but he still lost to Ted Cruz by, 8 points? Still lost by 8 points. Yeah, you outran Kamala Harris. That's not hard to do. And Allred's polls are, I think you could say, competitive against Paxton, no doubt. But Cornyn faces a much better polling against someone like Allred. And Texas electorate is trending right, not left. In 2024, we saw that Trump and Cruz expanded their margins in suburban and Hispanic areas. The Texas Majority PAC, or Blue Texas campaign, is throwing millions at the race. But similar efforts have failed in 2018, 2022, 2020, 2024. And Democrats overall face a brutal Senate map with better flip opportunities for Democrats in Maine, in North Carolina, and not Texas, which is another reason why it'll be tough for Democrats in Texas. Simply because, look, they're going to put their resources into North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota. Texas is not high on the bucket list, like if we're being 100% honest right here. There's much better opportunities for Democrats to spend their money and actually get some bang for their buck. They're probably not going to get much out of spending that money in Texas. And yes, could a midterm backlash against President Trump and his administration help Democrats? I just think, especially because of the shifts we've seen in the electorate in Texas among the Hispanic community. Look, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, we'll even go 4 years ago, most of this was still blue down here. Trump flipped one county here, a couple counties he flipped. But still, this is still mostly blue. You're still voting for Biden by 17 points, by 23 points. Nothing would, like 2024, Donald Trump solidified the support in the Republican Party among Hispanic Americans. They know how big of an issue the border was. The border was a huge issue for them. And as long as whoever the Republican nominee is focuses on that, they close in the border, they $45 billion for a border wall. Like, the one big beautiful bill, it may be unpopular on its face, but there's a lot of provisions in there that are very, very popular. So even with a backlash from President Trump, even if Paxton wins the primary and his scandals don't, just go away, in Texas, the GOP has a dominance. Voters here are going to choose to vote with the Republican Party and not with the pathetic Democrat Party who wants to push illegal transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants, who wants to push open border policies, who wants to push green new scam policies, who wants to push equity and not equality. People are smart in Texas. They will be smart enough to vote against these radical left-wing policies. But just to kind of wrap things up, the 2026 Texas Senate election will be messy, no doubt. And we can see the Cook Political Report made this big change for, moving this from a safe Republican seat to a likely Republican seat, which means it's a little more competitive. But like we said, this is not because of anything the Democrats did. This is a Paxton versus Cornyn bloodbath, but Republicans will have held the seat for decades and they will likely keep it. Democrats can dream, but Texas is not turning blue in 2026. History and numbers do not lie, and they will not let people down. But folks, that is going to wrap things up for today. As always, drop down below. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.